last live didn't go too well, but we're back. All right, today's video is going to be on America and the threat of Islam to the United States. It appears that today we have a major issue going on with now for the last 20 years of this infiltration of a known and long-established declared enemy of the United States of America, and the complicitness of that of our own government in aiding and assisting that of a long-established, known and declared enemies of the United States in being able to infiltrate our nation and indoctrinate that of American posterity with the aiding and assisting of that of our own government within not only the federal highest levels up to the presidency, but down to the state and county levels across our nation, and where this foreign enemy of the totalitarian Islamic states has been able to indoctrinate and ingrain into the American posterity and put into our culture that of their foreign totalitarian ideology. And this is being done with complicity of mostly with the Democratic Party, who has opened up their political establishment in the United States for this foreign enemy to be able to infiltrate and indoctrinate and put in the propaganda of that of the teachings of their foreign totalitarian regime. And they have been being aided and assisted by the Democrats. And what we're going to look at today is going to go over the brief history of the truth of what we're being told and the lies we're being told. We see here in many articles that are out today, like here, George Washington was a friend of the Muslims, it says. This is a lie. When you see these kind of headlines, this is a lie. When you look at the facts and the truth of the federal archives of which we have, and the truth of the history and our relations for our 244 short year history with the Islamic Muslims, we have been nothing but at war with these people. And these people have been over and over again declared the foreign enemies of the United States and the American people now for all of our history. And this is a known and undeniable fact. This headline right here, by information which I'm going to show you that exists within the federal archives of unquestionable evidence of fact that George Washington was not a friend with the Muslims. Matter of fact, George Washington considered the Muslims to be the enemies of all mankind. We're going to see that as we progress forward. But the threat that we're facing in America right now, as we see here, again, many articles right now are being confounded with that of early comments that were made by early founding fathers who were not fully aware yet of what even Islam was. It was not something that Islam was is in the cultural mind of that of what was the evolution of America coming to be and its forming to come to be the United States. Thomas Jefferson's comments were made earlier on when he was a younger man, without a full understanding. And when you look back at the comments that they claim it would establish a relationship with America and the Muslims, is done out of ignorance, okay? It's done out of ignorance of what's later statements by the very same people acknowledge that ignorance and their mistake, and even considering the potential of what you would call inclusiveness between, or the possibility of inclusiveness between that of what America was founded as and that of what Islam stands for. America being a Christian Judeo-founded nation, and where under our establishment, Christianity was the founding religion of our nation, supported by that of the principles of the foundation of Christianity, which was Judaism. Even in a time of when the Constitution was drafted in America, the only two establishments of religion that were practiced here in America was Judaism and Christianity. And the only two establishments that existed in America was Jewish mosques and Christian churches. And a lot of people want to say different, but that's a lie too. There was no such thing as Islam in America at this time. There was never anything, because the kings of Great Britain who ruled the continent of America prior to the United States forming, as well, were Christian founded nations that did not agree with Islam. And as well, Great Britain was forced to pay, as well, like America would be eventually under George Washington, the jizya tax with the totalitarian Islamic extortionary states of the Muslims. And they knew that they were enemies as well. The Muslims were the founders of, was founded about 1,400 years ago, and it was founded as a totalitarian regime. Now, I know a lot about Islam because my understanding and knowledge of Islam goes back to when I was a young kid in the mid-'70s, because of the rise up of the what then was known as the Nation of Islam 5%er gangs, who tried to divide that of the white inner city kids and black inner city kids and cause a rivalry between them and like kind of gang wars with them. And then you also had the white racist gangs of the Nazi skinheads, who tried to divide the white kids from the black kids and do the same thing, cause like these racial wars in the inner city areas of Brooklyn, the Bronx, Manhattan, Philadelphia, and North New Jersey. It was crazy back then. But my indulgence in understanding these things at the time as a younger man, I wanted to understand the history and what was going on. So my study of these things started back then. But I also would like to acknowledge that I have an in-depth study as well where I spent near 2 years among a Muslim majority population of that of both American Muslims and that of foreign Muslims who were in America to indoctrinate that of American people. And during that 2 years, I was a proud Christian American, and I can assure you, and during that near 2 year period, the Muslims would have wanted nothing more than to kill me if they could have. And I endured a lot of fighting in that time with the Muslims because I maintained to my principles and values as a proud American Christian man. So my wisdom is more than knowledge, it's wisdom firsthand. And I know what it's like to go against the Muslims because, like I said, I endured near 2 years of fighting with the Muslims as a proud American Christian man. So with that being said, my history understanding as well, I've been studying world culture and history now pretty much for the majority of my life, now going on over 47 years in study on world cultures, religions, and ideologies, and mainly with a strong focus on that of America as a proud American, my own history and who we are and the principles and values and the tenets of what we stand to as the American people. But with that being said, now we're going to go on. We have been being told now for 20 years, since 2001, since we were attacked again by the Muslims, was the first attack ever on American home ground where a foreign known and declared enemy had attacked us on our own home ground and killed Americans. Near 3,000 Americans being killed in the 9/11 attack on America. That was in New York City, September 11th in 2001. I don't have anything up on it right now. I'm just speaking from memory here, but I'm sure all are familiar and aware and remember the attacks on 9/11 that took place where Osama bin Laden, through what was known then as Al-Qaeda, had planned to take down. Now, this was the second attack. The first attack would actually take place in I believe it was 92, the first attack on the World Trade Center. I don't even have these things up. I do these things, like I say, I get an idea of what I want to do, and I go off memory, so we're going to have to, you have to bear with me. First World Trade Center attack, because as I'm talking, I'm realizing of what I need to bring up here. It was 93. This is the first World Trade Center attack in the parking garage by Osama bin Laden as well. These were the Islamic Muslim leaders at that time. And the first attack was on the World Trade Center and trying to cause it to collapse as an attack on the financial center of America in New York City. Then we would have the second World Trade Center attack, which would happen in 2001, September 11th, and where near 3,000 Americans were killed in the collapse of the World Trade Center's buildings, which I'm pretty sure we all remember, or we should remember, even though it was 20 years ago now, going on 2 decades. Following these events, we have the issues in where we start to see Islam come into America. Islam coming into America, which I have to bring up here, is the first Muslim to enter our government, which would be Keith Ellison, who was the first congressman to take a position in the American government in the United States through the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party was the ones who opened. Now, Keith Ellison is obviously, and no offense, it's just the facts of truth, an ignorant black American. No American would want to be a Muslim if they knew the truth of Islam and they understood, the reality of what Islam has done to that of the black Africans. So just in brief, so people are aware, America takes a lot of the blunt for the African slave trade. And to show the ignorance of this man here, as a black American who became a member of the Nation of Islam and is a Muslim now, the Islamic Muslims invaded North Africa in 640 AD. That was near 1,200 years before America even existed as a continent on the earth. At that time, following that, they invaded the deeper areas of Africa, and they started the black African slave trade back then. The founder, who is called the Prophet of Islam, Muhammad, was the man who started the black African slave. He himself was one of the first black African slave owners in human history. They were the main distributors of the black African slave trade for near 1,200 years until the transatlantic slave trade. And even in the transatlantic slave trade, the majority of all black African slaves purchased and shipped into the new continent of the developing nation of America were purchased by that of Great Britain. We were under Great Britain's rule at that time. We were not yet the United States of America. And the kings of Great Britain had purchased those slaves from no other than the totalitarian Islamic Muslims, who were the primary providers of the black African slaves to the world slave trade. So this man here decided he wanted to become a Muslim. We know of Islam from issues like with Muhammad Ali, that took place. I myself have a video I did, which I'll put a link to here. It's called The Lies of the Nation of Islam. And you can go and visit that on this Facebook page or on my YouTube channel. It's called The Lies of the Nation of Islam. And you'll understand even more in depth greater why this man is such an ignorant fool. But Keith Ellison was appointed through the Democratic Party, got his election as a congressman, one of the first Muslim to ever be put into the American government. Now, I understand a lot of people say, well, where are we going with this? We're going to this because we have to establish that first, like we'll see here. This is following the 9/11 event, and what we see, the propagation, the indoctrination of the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party opening a door to this long known and established enemy of the American people, the totalitarian Islamic Muslims. And I know today a lot of people say, well, not all Muslims. I'm sorry, all Muslims. Okay? I understand Islam, and by the time at the end of this video, you will understand that Islam is a foreign totalitarian regime that established 1,200 years ago, in line to that of at the time was a cultural development of using religious ideology as a way for the pursuit of world domination and control. Totalitarianism was the primary method at the time of when Islam came about. We've seen prior to this happening with the demigods of the Arabians. We've seen it with the demigods of the Babylonians. We've seen it with the demigods of the Greeks. We've seen it with the demigods of the emperors of Japan and China. These were long established platforms and methods of forming totalitarian ideologies using religion as a foundation to establish these ideologies. By that of it starts way back even before Egypt. It goes back to ancient Babylon before the time of even Egypt, and then through Egypt with the pharaohs of the demigods, and then forward again to Babylon again, and then the others I just previously mentioned. So let's just take a listen real quick so we can understand the foundation of where we can find the complicity right now through the Democratic Party. And the ignorance doesn't only stem in the Democratic Party. Though I will say this, back in the late 90s and early 2000s with Keith Ellison issues, it was Trey Gowdy, who I remember back then being one of the only Republican congressmen who would raise issue about a Muslim being appointed or even elected into our government. Trey Gowdy back then, as I recall, mentioned about the issues with possible bestiality, things that were allowed in Islam, like polygamy, multiple marriages, pedophilia, molesting of children, and such these things, and how they would conflict with that of American cultures. But the Democrats defended them. Why? Was most of the Democrats didn't defend them out of treason so much as what Hillary Clinton is fully aware of her acts were treason. This woman is fully knowledgeable and aware she's a self-serving woman who doesn't give a damn about any loyalty to America. Her interest is in her own wealth and power. And she knew exactly what she was doing with total disregard for that of the American people or the lives of the American people or our posterity. It's disgraceful what we have allowed in this country. But let's take a quick listen to what she has to say here.
How important it is for them to feel that they are wanted and included and groups around lines. I've worked with a lot of different. We need to be engaging in the kind of demagogic rhetoric that Donald has about Muslims. We need American Muslims to be part of our eyes and ears on our front lines. I've worked with a lot of different Muslim groups around America. I've met with a lot of them, and I've heard how important it is for them to feel that they are wanted and included and part of our country, part of our homeland security, and that's what I want to see. It's also important, I intend to defeat ISIS, to do so in a coalition with majority Muslim nations. Right now,
this woman is such a fool, obviously totally unaware of the history. America's 244 years new. The totalitarian Islamic Muslims have been doing what they've been doing now for over 1,400 years. And this woman thinks she has a grasp on the reality of what is going on with Islam, but in truth, this woman is totally ignorant to the reality and the threat to America by the foreign totalitarian Islamic Muslims, and how that threat has been long-standing and well-established by that of many of our founding fathers right up to our history of all of our 244 years. And that's what we're going to take a look. But I want to go on and just take a further listen to what Hillary Clinton has to say about the Muslims.
Whatever to do with terrorism. Muslims for delay is over. We should get this done. Let's be clear though. Islam is not our adversary. Muslims are peaceful and tolerant people and have nothing whatsoever to do with terrorism.
This woman is a blatant liar, okay? Because I'm going to tell you right now, she's either a blatant liar, she's as ignorant as a rock to world history and the history between Islamic Muslims in America. Because Islam is the world's longest standing totalitarian ideology of war that humanity has ever seen. Islam, in its belief and its foundation of its tenets, is responsible for the murder of over 350 million people in its 14-year history of waging jihad war in its pursuit for world domination to try to force the world to accept and convert to Islam through threat of death, war, and terrorism for 1,400 frickin' years. And this woman is lying because the tenets of Islam have not changed to this very day. We're going to eventually speak and talk on the tenets of Islam and how, to this very day, the ignorance of what ancient teachings still exist and how it confounds that through indoctrination of that of modern now time Muslims to be still thinking like that of 1,400 year ago Muslims. And we'll see that reality as we progress forward. But right now, I just want to go, the Founding Fathers and Islam. These are the things we have to consider. And when we look at the truth of it, like here in Documents Religious Freedom that was written for the Virginia colonial legislation in 1777, Thomas Jefferson stated that the Jew, the Gentile, the Christian, and the Muslim, and the Hindu, and the infidel of every denomination are welcome. Well, you know what? In 1777, these comments were made by Thomas Jefferson out of ignorance. He included all, and I understand that we were intending to be all-inclusive of that with totalitarian Muslims. But we didn't understand. Thomas Jefferson, none of our founders understood the truth of the ideology of Islam. We became aware of that truth during the deep study for 10 years up until 1786, where we developed our Constitution. There was a 10-year which we had the Federalist Letters. That was a like a composition of multiple studies of world culture, histories, and nations' rise and falls, and political establishments. We became aware during that span of time up to our Constitution being drafted of the truth of the ideology, and Thomas Jefferson as well, his ignorance turned more toward wisdom eventually, with the understanding when we would be having our first issues with the Islamic Muslims under George Washington, when they started capturing our ships out at sea and kidnapping our people and selling them into slavery. Again, too, is like I make in other videos, most people aren't aware slavery didn't exist only with black African slaves. The white slave trade existed twice as many slaves in the world as that of black African slaves, just so people understand this is a fact of reality. But they were capturing the white people off of the American ships and selling them into slavery or holding them for ransom. The Muslims have what is known as what's called a jizya tax, which I'll see if I can find this Muslim. Right here, jizya, J-I-Z-Y-A, historically a tax. The term is often incorrectly translated as a head tax or a poll tax paid by non-Muslim populations to their Muslim rulers. And this was true. This is what we had dealt with under George Washington. George Washington, we were, as a free nation now, as a newly established nation, America would face the situation with the Islamic Muslims where we would be having to pay the jizya tax. George Washington, we would be forced to. We didn't have a navy yet. And we still were just coming out of the war with the Revolutionary War with Great Britain. We were very devastated financially and economically. We had not yet had our nation be able to recover from the Revolutionary War. And yet we were being threatened by the Islamic Muslims that we had to pay this jizya tax, and they were taking hostage. And if I recall right, we had to give up almost 20% of our national value to try and save Americans from the totalitarian Islamic states. We're going to take a quick look. I want to transfer over No, not yet. Okay. So we're going to take a look. Like, here's the Jefferson version versus the Muslims pirates. Now, this happens in 1801 during the First Barbary War. Now, it says here, about stuff with Jefferson at this time. He obtained Qurans and he started to do a study, of which I'm going to go now over to something I'm going to show you so people understand what I'm saying is the truth. This was a letter from George Washington. And it was in relation to that when the Muslims were threatening the Jizya, kidnapping our people and taking our ships over that were out to sea. And after careful consideration and review, this letter is written, of course, in 1786. Now, mind you, the comments and all made by Thomas Jefferson and James Madison prior that they make claim to that America is somehow friends with the Islamic Muslims, as we see within the first, like we put here, where it says George Washington was a friends of the Muslims. Thomas Jefferson, they try to say, was friends with the Muslims. James Madison, they try to say, was friends with the Muslims. All the comments and things that they speak of in this time are all prior to the times of where we would deal with the Muslims and become aware of who the Muslims are. The thing Americans don't understand, and it seems the political establishment of our educated idiots of government don't understand, is that history is important. And knowing the truth of the relationship is that, like, for instance, America is a nation where church and state is separate. And this is not the case with Islam. And this is what I want to explain. Now, see, Islam doesn't hide their agenda, doesn't hide the facts and the truth of their culture, and that their culture does not change. Understand, the culture and the values and the tenets and the principles of Islam are the same today as they were 1,400 years ago within all sects of Islam. Now, when you study the long trend of 1,400 years of Islam and you say to yourself, well, yeah, but the Sunnis say they're nice people, and it's the Shia who say they're the mean people, and this sect says, well, let me tell you something. Look at the history of Islam, and you will find out that, let me just see if I can find it here. I know I have it. It's either here. It's here. Just give me 1 second. I'm looking for something to find. I believe it's got to be here. One second, people. I'm trying to do this. It said list. There it is. Right here. This is a list of the wars since the founding of Islam forward to the current date. As you can see, 12th century, 13th century, 14th century, 15th century, 16th century, 17th century, 18th century, 19th century, 20th century. As you can see, these are the list of the wars that were waged by the Islamic Muslims on humanity. As I said, Islam is accountable for an estimated over 350 million deaths of people, innocent people, in the name of Islam. 350 million people killed in the name of Islam since its founding. And this was all due in their pursuit for world domination and control. The Muslims have to, in their ideology, they believe they are the governors of the world under the tenets of how this ideology evolved. And their goal and pursuit is world domination and to force convert by terrorism, murder, whatever means necessary, all people in the world to submit to Islam and to accept Islam and to be under the rule of the totalitarian royal monarchies of the Islamic states. This is their goal. It's been their pursuit now for 1,400 years. America, again, is 244 years new. Obviously, still very ignorant that we can't even remember the 244 years of our short little history and how these people have been long established throughout the whole 244 years of our history, because our wars with these people as well exist within the... what just happened? within the ranks of what we're showing you right here. We can see the wars of America as we hit into the periods of the 1700s, 1800s, and 19th and 20th century here. We see our wars with these Muslims as well appear in these ranks. And I'll include links to this so you can see, but I hope you understand and look at this. Understand this. There has not, since Islam has been founded, there has not been an issue of war in the world that did not involve the Islamic Muslims. And near every war since the founding of Islam has been instigated by the Islamic Muslims, including a long, bloody run-out of war of what was known as the Christian Crusades, and where, because they had declared the Jewish people and the Christians their enemies. The enemies they must destroy in this world. And this is a long-established tenet of the Islamic Muslims culture. The enemies of the Islamic Muslims are the Christians and the Jews. And the history of them in attacking the Christians and the Jews has been ongoing now for 1,400 years. America was a Christian-founded, Judeo-Christian-founded nation. So we are, and we have been long established, declared the enemies of Islam by them themselves, Muslims. Now understand, when you understand, like I was talking about with the jizya tax, you also have what is known as, what do they call it, where they lie. They're allowed, Islamic word for lying, tiaka, right? I don't know if I'm saying that, tikiaka, right, is the Islamic word. This is something that's allowed in their religion, and where they, to pursue their agenda of world domination and control, they're allowed to deceive people, deceptively enter into peace treaties, whatever have you, in the pursuit of that of their goal, and to protect Islam. They can lie. They will enter into, and we have a history of our 244-year history of what we know. Like I say, our first war, when we get to the truth of the facts, and we look, Jefferson versus the Muslims was the first war that took place in 1801 with the totalitarian Islamic Muslims. We had eventually established peace treaties with them, but those peace treaties were only established because they realized they were going to lose the war. So they'll tell and they'll do and they'll say whatever they need to say to keep peace until they regroup and they can again establish troops enough to go ahead and wage again another jihad. And this is what the long-standing base of what we're talking about here in the history of them, as you see here. This history is, that's what it is. It's constantly war, 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 and initiation of war by the totalitarian Islamic Muslims. This is a list of wars of the Islamic history. This right here. I mean, this. Look at this. This goes from when they were founded in the 7th century A.D., 8th century, 10th century, 11th century, 12th century, every century. War upon wars. Look at all the across the board here, the wars. And they wage these wars on everybody because their goal is world domination, and they have to destroy every governing nation in the world and bring it under their control. This is what their goal is. So understand, the tenets of this is their goal: world domination and control by forced conversion. And there's no mercy on anyone who rejects. Anyone who rejects it is to be, as it says in the Quran, struck at the neck. And what we don't understand in the facts of what we look at here, which I'm going to go to, I just want to explain, like I was saying about church and state. Let's take a quick listen and let the Muslims themselves tell us what really is the tenets of what I'm trying to say. We'll just take a listen to them. And let me just shrink this down, and we'll go over here. I'm going to see if I can find what I'm looking for, which is right here. Now, this is a Muslim scholar, and we're going to listen to what this guy has to say so we can understand the difference between of what our founding fathers became to understand. George Washington became to understand this. Thomas Jefferson came to understand. John Adams understood this, and James Madison understood this. And when we came to understand this, we realized why we were enemies and why we would never have a reckoning with the totalitarian Islamic Muslims. We would always remain enemies, as does any world nation. We are not the only ones that have to deal with the constant battle of war with the Islamic Muslims. They wage war and jihad on the entire world, is what we've seen in the last 20 years. They have been waging their jihad war on France, Paris, Germany, Italy, Greece, all of the UK, America, you name it, Canada. They're infiltrating and invading everywhere and trying to spread Islam. And that's the other thing, understanding the methods. These people infiltrate gradually, and they have no time limit. Their goal is world domination. They've been doing this for 1,400 years. So understand, it doesn't stop. There's no such thing as, oh, well, they lost Desert Storm, so the war's over. They lost the Iraqi war, the war's over. 9/11's gone. No, it never stops. Until they rule the world, and that's the tenets, that's the foundation of their whole goal, is world domination. And until they rule the world, they will wage war on the world, trying to rule the world and overthrow by any means necessary that they can use to infiltrate and overthrow any nation they can. Though the world has in it as well huge, massive dictators and totalitarian and communist regimes like China. China, in a way, understands and has a very good control over the Islamic states, and as well as what many other like dictatorial leaders like North Korea and such and what have you. Then you have like Russia. Russia is a nation that is a nationalist nation and has been long established a nationalist nation. Russia has a long history as well, way longer than the United States, of dealing with war with the Islamic Muslims. We hear from our own politicians condemning Russia without even understanding the long train of war that Russia has had with the Islamic Muslims under continuous attacks over their 1,400 year of history on what is now today the modern Russian people. And I'll tell you, bloody battles of long history, way longer than what we have endured for our short 244 year history. And the Russian position against the Muslims is one out of reality. Those people understand the true threat of the Islamic culture and the Muslim to that of their nation and their people, as should most. The Greeks should understand it because the Greeks had war with them way before America even existed. The same with the United Kingdom. From the Christian Crusades, you'd think they would have learned. But no, it seems people keep repeating history because they can become ignorant to it. And America is about to become ignorant and fall if we don't wake up and realize the truth of what I'm saying. But let's listen to what this guy has to say.
Here. So the idea for you to be killed about making a private affair, your trans religion, which is a...
Okay, I'm going to give you a quick background. This guy is an Islamic scholar from Islam, and he is a man who speaks around the world on Islam. And what he's talking about is apostasy, and how if you become a Muslim and then you leave Islam, you're killed. Okay, because there's no right of freedom of religion in Islam. It's either Islam or you're dead. There's nothing. They don't allow other religions in Islam. Though today they tell you, oh yeah, you can practice you pay the jizya tax, you can practice your religion. Understand that in Saudi Arabia, Iran, and the Islamic controlled nations, they will let you have the jizya tax for a while. Eventually the jizya tax becomes to a point where you are literally working as a slave. Because that's what happens. If during the jizya tax payment time you do not agree, they give you like a grace period to convert. If you don't convert within a certain amount of time, they will tax you to the point you are working for nothing and you become a slave. They enslave you and you enter the slave trade because you refuse to become a Muslim. And until you become a Muslim, you're going to remain a slave. But once you are enslaved, even then, once you're enslaved because you gave up all options, you're going to remain a slave to the day you die or until somebody cuts your head off for being an infidel or a kafir. So this is where we're at. This guy's explaining how there is no leaving Islam and there is no other religion allowed within Islamic nations, and how you are killed if you leave Islam and you condemn Islam. And then also he explains here, the most important thing I'm trying to explain is how Islam's church and state of governance is one and the same, and how it's different from that of the West ideology's view of religion, of what was in the beginning the ignorance of what Thomas Jefferson and some of our founding fathers viewed Islam as being like that of Western kind of religion, of freedom of choice of religion, or a peaceful religion. They didn't understand that it was a totalitarian regime ideology of fallacy just made up for world domination, like a method of controlling the enslaved Muslims. It's an ideology of a fake religion made up to control the Islamic Muslims, to indoctrinate them from the time of birth forward, because man will question each other, but few of us question the authority of God. So they establish a religion as they used to do back in the ancient days, and then they proclaim themselves the authority of the religion, to be self-proclaimed by the God of that religion as an authority. So then they become the Islamic State leaders of that authority, and now as the leaders, you either listen to them or you're killed for blasphemy. So, but let's listen to what this guy's got to say.
One. Islam is not that you can be killed for. So the issue of the state and protection of...
I want to get to the point where everybody can understand.
In the West, sounds pretty be a Muslim anymore and they'll kill you. Sounds pretty serious. You know, and they say, okay, that's why so many of you don't convert.
I'm sorry for the time, and like these things take time for the truth to be understood. We have to have time, and I'm sorry for like some of the I do these things off the top of my head. So just real quick, be patient with me.
Because you're afraid of death. Reality is that, of course, in the West, they do execute people for treason, isn't it? You commit treason, you sell state secrets to the enemy, you will be executed. So the issue of the state and protection of that state is one big enough that you can be killed for. In Islam, religion and the state are one. Islam is not like a religion as the West understands religion, which is a private affair. So the idea for you to be killed about making a private affair, your choice in a private affair, this sounds ludicrous, ridiculous. How? You choose to be a this or a that, or you change and you're going to kill you? No, this is personal. So they have to understand that religion in Islam is not a personal affair alone. Yes, it has a personal element, but it is the state. So when a person...
Now you see, I hope you understood what this man just said, and that you understand that the tenets of the governing of the foreign totalitarian government of the nations of Islam are one with the church. Church and state are one, and they're not the same as the West, and that it's not a personal affair. It's mandated under the laws of Sharia and that of the Islamic states, that Islam is the national ideology of religion to these foreign governments that are established under Islam, under the Sharia law of Islam. And these are foreign totalitarian regimes, okay, that operate under this foreign ideology. This is a foreign government, and it's not just a religion, it's a government. It's a foreign government. I'm gonna have you play this part again so we can hear it.
Religion as the West understands religion, which is in Islam, religion and the state are one. Islam is not like a religion as the West understands religion, which is a private affair. So
understand when he says the West, he's talking about America. You see, he's trying to explain, and he's doing a good job at explaining that how church and state is one, and it's not like what we view, and we don't understand this. And obviously our politicians don't understand this, because it's again in our Constitution and the establishment of our laws. It's forbidden for us to honor that of a foreign nation, especially a foreign totalitarian nation, ideology of rule or law or teachings in our nation. We cannot allow a foreign country to have its practices being conducted within our nation, especially one of a foreign totalitarian regime. But this is what we're doing by allowing Islam in. Now, on a religious basis, if it was a personal nature of a religion like Hindu, Buddhist, or what have you, or one of the other disciplines in the world which is not a church and state weave together ideology and where it's the governing authority of a foreign state, those things are not a threat to us. But when we have something that is a government that's seeking world totalitarian regime rule as world dominant in its thing, and it demands that of only its governing authority and powers by that of its own allowed governing religion, of which the religion itself proclaims the governing authority as the authorities of God, we have a problem with that. That's totalitarianism. That's the ultimate of totalitarianism. And that's what we're facing with Islam.
The idea for you to be killed about making a private affair, your choice in a private affair, this sounds ludicrous, ridiculous. How? You choose to be a this or a that, or you change and you're going to kill you? No, this is personal. So they have to understand that religion in Islam is not a personal affair alone. Yes, it has a personal element, but it is the state. So when a person leaves Islam publicly, they are challenging that state. So it is like an act of treason. And this is why the law is so severe. And that is for the person who publicly goes out and says, I have left Islam. Islam is this, that, and the other. Yes, that person will be executed.
So as you can understand, this is the true tenements by that of the Muslims themselves. Now, I would like to, because real quick before we go, I want people to understand. When I say that they're still teaching the tenets of Islam as it was established 1,400 years ago under its totalitarian ideology, and a quick understand the Quran itself was written 120 years after the so-called Prophet Muhammad had died. If you look into it and you study these things, you'll find out it is a made-up religion, like I said, of like the Egyptians, Babylonians, China with the demigods of the emperors, the Babylonian demigods, the Egyptian demigods, half men, half gods. This is an ideology that stems off of that time. And this was a normal, common thing in the practice at that time, and where the rulers attempting to establish rule and domination over a nation in those times would somehow associate themselves to be that of ordained by God or some demigod. And we even see this with the kings of England and Great Britain and the rise of the Christian kings trying to self-proclaim themselves an authority as condoned or decreed by that of God, Jesus Christ. But Christianity fails as a totalitarian demigod kind of ideology because it's too peaceful and it's too in line with the laws of nature, and nature's God. So it was pretty hard for the kings to become totalitarianism, as like what we see with Islam. Islam was easy to do it because it's not really a religion. It's plagiarized. Most of it steals the ancient scriptures of that of the Jewish religions, and even steals out of the scriptures of Jesus Christ in the forming of what they call their Islam, of what still, when we look at Islam and we look at what their God is said to be the God Allah. And I'm making this point so we understand that when I say it's not really a religion, or it has a basis, a foundation that proves it could not be of any real true God. I don't know what people's ideology. I believe in Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior. I believe in Almighty God. If you don't believe in a God, you're an atheist. It doesn't really matter. The point of this is that if there is a real God, this ideology definitely is not associated with it. And I'm going to explain to you why. And this is the teachings. These are modern times because these are current videos. This guy is considered an expert scholar, an imam of Islam. And this, you see here in America now, in the West here, in America and as well as other nations like America, you have the ability to learn, and you have the ability to have libraries. Everything I learned, thank God for libraries. No one taught me anything. I'm self-educated in everything I know. And libraries have been my stream of knowledge and my indulgence into understanding and learning. And it's not this way around the world. In the Islamic-controlled culture, they're restricted to only learning what is allowed for them to learn. That's a totalitarian regime. They're told what they can read, what they can't read. Majority of Muslims are dictated to who can read and can learn to read and who can't read. Education is picked by the governing authorities to who will be educated and who won't. And as we'll see here, in modern time, an example of a man who believes himself to be an expert, and he believes himself to be smarter than any American, because he is educated under the Islamic culture and ideology of Islam. And I want you to listen to this man. I just want you to listen to this video and understand.
الحقيقة الذي عليه علماؤنا كالشيخ الإمام عبد العزيز بن باز والشيخ صالح الفوزان حفظه الله تعالى أن الأرض ثابتة لا تتحرك. وهذا هو.
Real quick, he was asked the question does the earth move? Because in the Quran, according to their God Allah, the earth is fixed and it doesn't move. It's a fixed, flat earth, okay? And we're going to go into that. And this is what they learned. So he's explaining to a group of Muslims in an Islamic state, so he's speaking in Arabic. Underneath it is translated in English so you can read it. And he's explaining how the Quran says the earth doesn't move. And he's going to explain to us how the Western Americans lie in saying the earth does move. And how everything that we claim in our science is fake. Because it goes against that of what the Quran says. So you understand, and I'm not lying to you when I say to you, that they are still indoctrinating these people with the ideology and cultural principles and values of tenets from 1,400 years ago. And these people today still believe it. Because what you are subject to know is the truth of what the Democrats today say. They choose truth over facts. because the facts will prove the truth of the Democrats are lies, the same as it does with Islam. Now let's finish out and listen to what this guy's got to say, and watch what it says in the bottom for the interpretation.
هو مقتضى النصوص ومقتضى العقل أصلا، والأدلة أيضا كثيرة عن الشمس التي تدور. الأدلة العقلية بارك الله فيكم، أنكم تقولون أنهم النظريات ومدري كيف، حتى نحن عندنا نظريات وعندنا عقول كمسلمين. أولا نحن الآن في أين؟ نذهب إلى مطار الشارقة، نريد أن نذهب إلى الصين بالطيارة، واضح؟ ركزوا معي. هذه الأرض إذا قلتم أنها تدور، إذا خرجنا من مطار الشارقة برحلة دولية إلى الصين، الأرض تدور صح؟ طيب لو وقفت الطائرة في السماء، أليست الصين تأتي؟ صح ولا لا؟ تدور وتأتي الصين ولا ما تأتي؟ طيب لو كانت الشمس الأرض تدور هكذا، لو تمشي الطيارة ما أدري كم تمشي لن تستطيع أن تلحق الصين، لأن الصين تدور وأنت تدور، ولن تستطيع أن تصل إلى الصين لأنك تدور وهي تدور، فكيف تصل إلى الصين؟ ثاني من الأدلة أيضا قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم من البيت المعمور. أين البيت المعمور؟ في السماء السابعة. محاذاة إيش؟ قال عليه الصلاة والسلام لو سقط على إيش؟ على الكعبة. أنتم تقولون الأرض تدور، طيب لو سقط هذا والأرض تدور ما يسقط على الكعبة.
You know, I'm sorry I didn't realize that. We're going to go back here and start this over. I didn't realize you couldn't see that bottom.
هذا يقول هل الأرض ثابتة أم تتحرك؟ ثابتة ولا تتحرك؟ الحقيقة الذي عليه علماؤنا كالشيخ الإمام عبد العزيز بن باز والشيخ صالح الفوزان حفظه الله تعالى أن الأرض ثابتة لا تتحرك، وهذا هو مقتضى النصوص ومقتضى العقل أصلا، والأدلة أيضا كثيرة عن الشمس التي تدور. الأدلة العقلية بارك الله فيكم، أنكم تقولون أنهم النظريات ومدري كيف، حتى نحن عندنا نظريات وعندنا عقول كمسلمين. أولا نحن الآن في أين؟ نذهب إلى مطار الشارقة، نريد أن نذهب إلى الصين.
Though this is live, I'm going to have to edit this to fix up some of my errors here. I made some very bad errors. So we're going to redo this from this point here, and I'll edit out the previous ones and make the mistakes. So that you know, this guy here, I'm going to show an example of how the Islamic Muslims are learning back what they were believing 1,400 years ago today, and today they still believe it because they're limited in what their knowledge is allowed to be learned in the Islamic states. They don't allow them to have access to modern science and understandings of what we understand today in relation to the reality of the world, the universe around us as we had advanced in science. In the Islamic states, these people are still taught the tenets and the values of that of 1,400 years ago, and they believe it still because they don't have access to the knowledge we have today. So let's watch and listen, and at the bottom you'll understand this man speaking. He is an Islamic scholar and imam, an expert in Islam, and he's a teacher in Islam, and what he is explaining is how the world does not move, and it's fixed by that because the Quran, the fake God Allah of Islam, says it's fixed, it doesn't move, and it's the sun and the moon that go around the earth that's fixed in its place. So pay attention to the bottom is the interpretation of what he's saying.
ثابتة أم تتحرك؟ ثابتة ولا تتحرك؟ الحقيقة الذي عليه علماؤنا كالشيخ الإمام عبد العزيز بن باز والشيخ صالح الفوزان حفظه الله تعالى أن الأرض ثابتة لا تتحرك، وهذا هو مقتضى النصوص ومقتضى العقل أصلا، والأدلة أيضا كثيرة عن الشمس التي تدور. الأدلة العقلية بارك الله فيكم، أنكم تقولون أنهم النظريات ومدري كيف، حتى نحن عندنا نظريات وعندنا عقول كمسلمين. أولا نحن الآن في أين؟ نذهب إلى مطار الشارقة، نريد أن نذهب إلى الصين بالطيارة، واضح؟ ركزوا معي. هذه الأرض إذا قلتم أنها تدور، إذا خرجنا من مطار الشارقة برحلة دولية إلى الصين، الأرض تدور صح؟ طيب لو وقفت الطائرة في السماء، أليست الصين تأتي؟ صح ولا لا؟ تدور وتأتي الصين ولا ما تأتي؟ طيب لو كانت الشمس الأرض تدور هكذا، لو تمشي الطيارة ما أدري كم تمشي لن تستطيع أن تلحق الصين، لأن الصين تدور وأنت تدور، ولن تستطيع أن تصل إلى الصين لأنك تدور وهي تدور، فكيف تصل إلى الصين؟ ثاني من الأدلة أيضا قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم من البيت المعمور. أين البيت المعمور؟ في السماء السابعة. محاذاة إيش؟ قال عليه الصلاة والسلام لو سقط على إيش؟ على الكعبة. أنتم تقولون الأرض تدور، طيب لو سقط هذا والأرض تدور ما يسقط على الكعبة، يسقط في البحر أو يسقط في المحيط أو يسقط في البر، هكذا. هذا يدل على أن الأرض ثابتة. قالوا صعدنا إلى القمر.
So understand, I'm just trying to make the point here. I'm not trying to make fun of them, because it's sad when you realize that these people are so deprived of knowledge, they still believe 1,400 year ago thinking and ideology, and they believe that the fake God Allah has made the earth flat and fixed in its place. And when I say flat and fixed in its place, I'm not joking you. We have other videos I would like to see if I can find here. I do have it somewhere I want to show you. We have another scholar who speaks about how the earth is flat. I thought I had it pulled up somewhere. Maybe I missed it. Nope, here it is. It could be here, right? Yeah, okay. So we're going to watch this now. This is a guy who explains how the Quran and a law of Islam tells how the earth is flat. Okay, so, and why it's flat. Let's listen. This guy is a doctor. He's an actual medical doctor in the Islamic States, and he's a man who grew up his whole life indoctrinated with that of 1,400 year ago thinking of the Quran, and has been deprived out of any knowledge of science or advancements in science of which we know today. So listen to what he says.
والآية اللي قرأتها قبل لحظة أنه جنة عرضها السماوات والأرض، فهذه دللت على أنه الأرض هي مسطحة.
إن لم تكن الأرض كروية فما هو شكلها؟ أنا عندي ثابت اليوم نتيجة التطور العلمي بالأقمار الصناعية وبالوسائل الحديثة المركبات الفضائية، ثبت أن خاصة بعد أن وجدت مركبات فضائية والمكوكات اللي تدور باستمرار حول الأرض واللي غادرت قسم من عندها الأرض إلى المجموعة الشمسية، أكدت الصور الناتجة على أن شكل الأرض كروي. عند سطح البحر عند ظهور السفينة واقترابها لا نشاهد أولا إلا الصاري، وبعد ذلك مقدمة السفينة وأعلاها ثم تظهر السفينة.
So understand, now this is a guy who has been exposed to Western science and world science and culture, and he understands the truth of that the earth is not flat. And he's trying to explain to this Islamic scholar and doctor of the Islamic States who grew up his whole life indoctrinated with Islam. And when I say totalitarian regime, I mean understand these people do not have the ability to obtain knowledge outside that of what the totalitarian Islamic rulers allow them to learn. When you look at the age of this man, you realize this man has been indoctrinated his whole life with that of 1,400 year ago thinking, and he has been deprived of any truth of understanding any knowledge and advancements in science and technology today, and he believes what he is told. This is a medical doctor and a scholar, an Islamic scholar, who teaches in the Islamic States under the supervision of that of the Islamic rulers. So, and he's been indoctrinated to teach as they want him to teach, and this is what they teach.
عندما تكون على شاطئ البحر فتشاهد أنت من بعد، لكن الأي بعد منهم البعد الوضوحي، فالبعد التلاشي لا ترى فيه شيء، وإنما بعدين لما تتقرب السفينة شيئا فشيء نحو الشاطئ أو المرسى فتشاهد من عندها ما ارتفع منها. كيف تشاهدها؟ لأنه العين مثل ما قلنا إحنا هي ما حد لها ما توصلوا إلى علم العين جميع الأطباء، لأنه شلون ترى الشيء كروي على بعد بالتلاشي، لما تتقرب إلى وضوح الرؤية تشوفها عدل. فهذه نفس الطريقة أنه يؤدي إياها. فإحنا لما إحنا موجودين على الأرض فإحنا قريبين إلى الأرض، فإحنا إذا نشاهد بنصف العين، لأن العين لو قسمناها بالنص القزحية فنشاهد إلى الأعلى مسافة أكبر وإلى الأسفل مسافة أقل. سنة 99 صار كسوف الشمس، كسوف كلي، فرحنا إلى الموصل، لأن هناك في الموصل صعدنا إلى دير مار متي، فهذا يرتفع 3600 قدم عن سطح الأرض. أخذت الشمس أن تختفي شيئا فشيء. وين بالنسبة إلى كتلة القمر، لأن القمر الكتلة مالته.
So you're seeing this. This man believes his sun is half the size of the moon. That's how come it can hide behind the moon. This is a full-grown man in modern time This is how they teach, and this is how dumbed down and deprived of real knowledge and understanding these people are under the control of the totalitarian Islamic leaders. So understand, these people are literally still 1,400 years ago thinking, and I'm going to show you too, this really starts to indoctrinate them from the time they're children.
هو نصف كتلة الشمس، فالقطر ماله 1,200,000 كيلومتر، والشمس القطر مالها 2,400,000 كيلومتر.
الأرقام اللي ذكرها فيما يخص كتلة القمر، احنا بأدلة علمية وبقوانين والاعتماد على قوانين في الفيزياء وعلم الفلك، تمكن العلماء من الاستدلال على كتلة القمر، وهي سدس كتلة الأرض. لذلك قوة الجذب المسلطة على الأجسام الموجودة على سطح القمر، وهذا ما أكده رواد الفضاء حين انتقالهم إلى سطح القمر، وتأكد لهم بأن القمر كروي. كانت الجاذبية قليلة هناك وهي أقل من جاذبية الأرض ب6 مرات، فلذلك الأوزان هناك تكون سدس. الخسوف والكسوف والغروب والشروق وتغير الفصول، كيف تحدث هذه الظواهر والأرض غير كروية على حد تعبيرك؟
الشمس بالنسبة لها هي اللي تدور حول الأرض لأنها هي الأصغر من الأرض بموجب الآيات القرآنية. أنت هل يوم من الأيام رأيت الشمس كيف تتحرك؟ أنا رأيتها تتحرك الشمس. تتحرك الشمس حركة واحدة في كل 24 ساعة، لأنه أنا لما أحكي عن العلم القرآني هو يحكي لي عن العلم اللي أنا رافضه أساسا، وهو العلم الحديث اللي يدرسون به، وهذا علم بدع لم يكن له أي حقيقة في القرآن الكريم، لأنه ما توجد أي آية في القرآن ترمز إلى كروية الأرض أو دورانها. فكل شيء اللي ما يرمز إلى شيء بالقرآن فهو.
So as you can see there, he said anything that is not founded in the Quran to be proven by the Quran is false, right? Not true. And I'm going to show you when he says this is the teachings of it. We're going to take a look at this now and understand that this is the teachings of, this is a teacher teaching children in Islamic schools in the Islamic states. Now understand the importance of this is so we understand the mindset of these people. Understand how they're deprived any true knowledge of wisdom or understanding, and how they're indoctrinated from the time that they're very, very young. And when you understand too as well, I'm showing you about educational things within science that prove that Islam, the God Allah, because the Quran says this is how that Allah made the earth and everything to work, is clearly not God, because God would not make a mistake on how everything was created in the universe as God. He is the creator. He would know how he made these things. So we understand by looking at this the fallacy of that the Quran is just really a fake religion made up for purposes of totalitarianism to control and enslave a society as Muslims, because that's what Muslim means, a submitted servant to the rulers of the Islamic states. They self-endow themselves the authority as if they are the authority of this God, Allah, which is a fake God, made up under fake tenets of a religion that are all about war, jihad, and world domination and forced conversion of everybody who is considered kafar, the infidels or non-Muslims in the world that must be converted to Islam or they die. This is also the teaching, is what you see the teachings of what we're showing you here. But I want to show you how they indoctrinate the children in the Islamic teachings by the teachers who teach their children over there. Even though these children, now with the internet and advancements in technology, become aware of world understandings, and listen to what this guy tells his child who questions this.
ज़मीन तो साकिन है बेटा, ज़मीन तो रोटेट करती नहीं है, ज़मीन गर्दिश नहीं करती।
लेकिन हमें ज्योग्राफी में पढ़ाया जाता है कि अर्थ जो है वो सूरज का चक्कर लगाता है।
ये लॉजिक ये गलत है बेटा। साइंस की ये थ्योरी जो है ना, ये दुरुस्त नहीं है। असल जो थ्योरी है ना वो कुरान और हदीस वाली है, और आला हजरत जो हमारे ना इमाम अहले सुन्नत आला हजरत ने I'm
not getting it where you can see the interpretation, I'm sorry. I got to get it where just give me 1 second. Let me get this where I can get the interpretation to where you can see it while it's expanded. Give me 1 second here. I'm no expert at these things, people. So just give me a second here. Okay. So now we're going to start this over.
अर्थ का डायरेक्शन दूसरी तरफ चांद की तरफ है।
सूरज आपके मुंह से दूर हो गया। कहाँ दूर चला गया?
वो अब है ना दूसरी डायरेक्शन में चला गया कि वो रोटेट करता रहता है तब दूसरे मुल्कों की तो बारी आनी चाहिए ना गर्मियों के लिए।
जमीन रोटेट कर रही है।
जी।
जमीन तो साकिन है बेटा, जमीन तो रोटेट करती ही नहीं है, जमीन गर्दिश नहीं करती।
लेकिन हमें ज्योग्राफी में पढ़ाया जाता है।
So as you see here, this child from studying things or seeing things on the internet is questioning and saying that he understood from what he found that the earth rotates so that other nations have their seasons and these things prove it and what have you, but the teacher is telling him no, it's fixed, it does not rotate. So pay attention to this.
अर्थ जो है वो सूरज का चक्कर लगाता है।
ये लॉजिक ये गलत है बेटा। साइंस की ये थ्योरी जो है ना ये दुरुस्त नहीं है। असल जो थ्योरी है ना वो कुरान और हदीस वाली है। और आला हजरत जो हमारे ना इमाम अहले सुन्नत आला हजरत ने ये प्रूफ किया है कि ज़मीन साकिन है, यानी ज़मीन मूव नहीं करती। साकिन को एक अच्छा सा वर्ड इंग्लिश का होता हुआ साकिन स्टैटिक, अर्थ स्टैटिक पोजीशन में है, तो ये मूव नहीं करती। और साइंस कहती है कि ज़मीन मूव करती है। आला हजरत हमारे इमाम अहले सुन्नत ने कुरान से साबित किया है कि ज़मीन मूव नहीं करती। तो हमने बात कौन सी माननी है? इस्लाम की, दीन की। आला हजरत ने इस्लाम और दीन की बातें की है। ठीक है बेटा, और कोई क्वेश्चन है जहन में?
तो फिर हमारा सुबह के टाइम पे सूरज आ जाता है, फिर चांद आ जाता है, तो फिर ये सर्कल कैसे चलता है?
सूरज और चांद तो ये तो मूव कर ही रहे ना। मतलब सूरज तो बेटा देखिए, सूरज अपनी गोल है, आपने देखा होगा है? तो सूरज अपने अल्लाह के हुक्म से अपना जो भी इसका साइकिल है उसके साथ वो मूव कर ही रहा है। तो जहाँ जहाँ सूरज मूव कर रहा होता है वहाँ पर उसके टाइमिंग के साथ वो चीजें चल रही होती है ना। तो ये सूरज और चांद की जो गर्दिश है, ये सूरज और चांद का जो आना जाना है, अब सूरज और चांद को यूँ समझे कि सूरज गुरूब हो जाता है। जैसे हमारे यहाँ से सूरज गुरूब हो गया तो कहीं तो सूरज तुलू हुआ ना बेटा,
जी जी,
सूरज नजर आ कहीं, तो ये कहीं चांद सूरज ये सब अल्लाह ताला के हुक्म से अपने वक्त के साथ इनका निज़ाम चल रहा होता है। हमने अभी के एपिसोड में आज के इस सिटिंग में सिर्फ इस बात।
So as you can see, and my point of what I'm trying to make here is that this is an Islamic teacher, that they're recording the teachings of him teaching Islamic children today in the Islamic states, that the earth is fixed, it doesn't move. So what I'm trying to say is that you have to understand that the jihad method with these people and the attacks by these people are indoctrinated with ideology and tenets and principles of that of 1400 years ago. Islam was founded as a warmonger. Muhammad, the said to be prophet, was a warmonger. These people waged war. They force converted people by terrorist attacks and war and beheading of people. Horrible attacks, and it still goes on to this day. I can't show the video of what I have to show the proof of what they do in relation to cutting people's hands off, feet off, hanging people, burning people alive, decapitating people in public, in the streets, so that the children and the families and the people of the public watching this understand that if you question Islam, you question the leaders of the Islamic countries, you do like these children are doing. They have to be indoctrinated, because if this child grows up to be an adult and questions these things, well, he'll be killed. And this is a fact. They'll be publicly killed. They'll be publicly beheaded for blasphemy. And this is a sad truth of reality. we're going to take a listen to a guy who was a newscaster in the Islamic States, and he became aware of that. He read a book called The State versus Muhammad, and it was about the truth of all the fallacies of science and debunking all the lies of Islam, and what his reaction was to this. We're going to take a listen to this guy.
هو مش عارف انه هيروح لربنا، مش هيلاقي محمد بديع جنبه ولا خيرت الشاطر، هيتدفن في متر في متر، يجيب له ايه اكتر من 33 مليون في الشارع، ما بيشوفوش امي، مش عارفين اللي حصل في البلد بسببهم، قعدوا يتكلموا عن مؤامرات، بيكلمني عن ايرادات في الخارج والداخل، هو اللي بعت لي بريك وبعت لاوباما ويحتمي بالامريكان. هذا الرجل ما فيش راجل قاعد في الثانية رئيس جمهورية يطلع تعبه يحس انصاره على الإرهاب، هو عاوز يقتتل صباحا كل جنب حرام، كل جنب تعطى الوطن حرام وتعمل محمد مرسي. هيا طالما يا جماعتي هيا ما يمشي محمد مرسي، ما فيش وطن شريف غير ما يدخل في المدينة. احنا ولا رد نخرج الناس من دلوقتي، ما كناش عايز نخرجكم زي ما محمد مرسي عمل. ايه اللي عمل ده؟ ايه الجرائم دي مؤسسة صاحبة 7000 طن حضارة، حرام عليهم. ايه الجنان اللي شفناه ده؟ ايه الهبل والجنان ده؟ انا بقول لكل المصريين لو فيكم راجل.
Now, understand, this book was banned in any of the Islamic states. It was a book that disclosed all the truth of the fallacies of the things I'm trying to explain to you. This man broke the law and I believe was executed for what he did here. He was murdered. He was killed because this is not allowed in the Islamic states, and he did this on national news. And it was shameful. You can see they cut away.
ما يرجعش غير لما محمد مرسي يمشي. كنا بنقول لحد امبارح او من ساعات عليه انه هو،
انا خايفه
عليه انه هو
استاذ ايهاب ثواني بس عشان خاطري،
عليه انه
انا
هو
خايفه بس عليه
يدعو الانتخابات. هذا الرجل انتهى وجماعته انتهت،
انا خايفه عليه،
ومصر مقبره الارهاب والتطرف انتهت خلاص. ومصوبه الاسلام
عشان انت عندك القلب يا ايهاب.
استاذ شوف نجيب له حرام.
لا خلاص ممكن تهدى عشان خاطري 5 دقايق صمت. اهدى.
You notice he says it is why we don't allow those kind of books in our country. Now, see, this is what I'm trying to say to you. You got to understand. Now, this guy here, too, if you read back and you'll see, and I'll include links to all these so you can watch them carefully in detail. Understand, people, that we have to wake up and face the reality of what we're dealing with here. We're 244 years new. My points are to the point of understanding that when we listen to these people and we realize who they are and we see the horrors. Now, this is a person here, Sandra Solomon. She's an Iranian woman who was raised under Islamic rule in Iran after Iran was overthrown by the totalitarian Islamics in 1978. Prior to 1978, as I said, Iran was an ally to America, and they were known as Mini America. If anybody wants to know what happens to a constitutional republic like America when it's overthrown by the Muslims, all you have to do is take a look at Iran. But she's somebody who escaped the totalitarian ideology of Iran and got to come to the United States and be an American. And she had gotten to enjoy the freedoms. Well, actually, she's in Canada. She's a Canadian. But there is another one named Annie Cyrus who is in America. And we're going to take a listen to, a little bit like her right here. This is Sandra Solomon. I'm just going to give a brief so you can see.
An astonishing violation for hate crimes laws across the Western world that have been appearing here and there, whether it's from the UK or Germany or the United States even. None of these laws should exist, of course. They're all violation of our freedom of speech. But what's interesting is that these hate speech laws are being selectively enforced in such a way as that the Quran, which is an astonishing violation of the spirit and the letter of these various laws, seems to be exempt from it while any criticism of the Quran or of Islam seems to run right up against this kind of enforcement. So maybe you'd like to talk about the Quran as hate speech and how it contradicts our various statutes.
Yes, thank you again for having me. Well, as an ex-Muslim, and I was raised in Saudi Arabia, I'm very well knowledgeable about the Quran.
Just so you know, I misspoke. I was speaking of Annie Cyrus as being the one from Iran. She was raised in Saudi Arabia under the Islamic rule of Sharia law. She escaped that, came to Canada. She is now a citizen in Canada. This is Sandra Solomon. And she is an advocate now who speaks out and tries to educate American people about the truth of the threat of the totalitarian Islamic regime. She's no longer a Muslim. She understands the truth. She has been exposed to world knowledge outside of what she was indoctrinated with as a child in Saudi Arabia, and she now is trying to wake up humanity to understand the evil and the threat of Islam to humanity and the danger it is to Canada and the United States.
Quran, the fact that we've been memorizing and studying the Quran since we are 6 years old, the kids, and I used to memorize more than half of it, and I was raised in Saudi Arabia all the way till high school, and we're studying every day. We have something called the commentary, which is tafsir in Arabic, and to study more and more Islamic Sharia law. Let me make it clear for everyone that each and every Muslim on the face of the planet, regardless of their sect, it's either Sunnis or Shia or any other sect, they believe that the Quran, this is their constitution. The oath that we have to give in school every day, that we have to say and repeat it always and always, that Muhammad, Islam is our religion, Muhammad is our prophet, Quran, it's our constitution, jihad, it's our way, and dying for Allah, it's our ultimate dream. And the fact that I start criticism of the Quran and start to, when I read the Quran and I fully understand what's the passage and what's the meaning and what's the message that so-called Allah through Muhammad he wants to us to do and wants to fulfill his mission, and what he wants us to do, and to go for jihad and to kill the kafirs, which is anyone who does not want to submit to this word. And according to the teaching of this book, supposedly this is the final word from so-called Allah. Supposedly he is the God of the universe, and we have to every human being on the face of the planet should submit to this book and should go by it and live by it and do exactly what it tells them to do. And therefore I refuse to submit to Sharia law. I refuse to follow this book and what it teach me, because it teach hate, it teach violence, it teach terrorism, it teach pedophilia, it teach violence against women. There is no such a thing, walk or talk about anything has to do with the human rights. It's a violation of our human rights. It's actually as well the strategic plan for the destruction of the whole world. And this book, it's a declaration of war against anyone and everyone who does not want to go by it and live by it and submit to it. So therefore I always bring back the root of the problem of Islam from here. This is the root of the problem, not the Muslims as a people. Each and every human being on the face of the planet, they've been subject since they are babies, since they are young, of a brainwashing. They try.
Now see, understand people, this is an Arabian woman raised there under the tenets of Islam her whole life. She knows it. And she had become aware of knowledge outside of what was in the Islamic states. And with that, she was able to awaken to reality. She escaped Saudi Arabia and now resides in Canada. And she's she has videos, you can look her up. This is Sandra Solomon. She's a great wisdom of Islam, and she understands the truth of the threat to us. Too bad our government doesn't listen to people like her or others. We have others, when I say others, we have here, this is Inez Annie Cyrus, is a woman who escaped the Sharia law and the totalitarian regime of Iran, and she is now an American, and a very proud American. And with her, I believe the story is a little bit more awakening than what Sandra Solomon had. Annie Cyrus would have had grandparents and family members who remembered Iran when it was free, before it was taken over by the totalitarian Islamic Muslims. She remembers, has been told the stories and became aware of the truth of understanding when Iran was called Mini America, and they had a constitution there verbatim to ours, and they were as free as we are, and they had the liberation that we had, and they were able to freely learn all things. So understand that Iran was only in 1978 overthrown and became an Islamic totalitarian regime at that time. So there are millions of people still in Iran who have knowledge of the truth, and they share that with their grandchildren and children. In spite of that, they know if they get caught doing it, they will be killed publicly for doing that. Annie Cyrus as well has an amazing story of overcoming the odds, and she as well is like Sandra Solomon. She's an advocate now trying to wake the West up to the truth of the threat of Islam in America and the truth of their agenda for world domination and their desire to overthrow the United States. She speaks very clearly about what she was indoctrinated with as a child in Islam and the Islamic States, how they told her to hate the West, to hate the Americans, how Christians are the enemies, how Jews are the enemies, and all Christians and Jews must be killed. So understand, this is the fact. And we'll just take a...
Until 1979.
We'll just take a quick listen to Annie Cyrus.
Hi. As it was mentioned, as you can see, my name is Annie Cyrus, and I was born in Iran. You might know it as Iran. Quick raise of hand, how many of you are familiar with the history of Iran? Okay, we're going to go over it quickly. Iran, until 1979, was not capital N-O-T Islamic. It was a very westernized country. It was run by Reza Shah Pahlavi and his queen. Reza Pahlavi was known to be the closest ally to America in the Middle East. Also, Iran in general was known as Mini America in Middle East. He made sure to have all the Western culture brought to the country, Western education at his schools and universities. He was very picky to have equal rights for man and woman. What you're looking at right now is a cover magazine of a magazine named Woman of the Day. So, women had their own magazine, and that picture is the very last year that we actually had the beauty pageant Miss Iran. These are the lovely ladies who were on that competition. And also, Iran was known to be Israel's ally in Middle East, only ally. In 1979, there was a revolution in Iran, and the Shah of Iran decided to temporarily step down until things would be sorted out.
She's telling the story I've been referencing about the overthrow of Iran and how it was a mini America. She knows this very well. She was raised in Iran her whole life under Sharia law. She has an incredible story of how she's overcome those things, and now she's an American and she's escaped those things. This woman is incredibly strong when you hear her life story and what she's endured and what she went through and how they tried to kill her before she was able to escape from there. So I'll include links to these things so you can look it up. But my point of what I'm trying to get to is that we have been being told by that of our own many people of that who have escaped Iran itself. Like there's others, I can bring up many dozens of former Muslims. Brother Rajia is another you can find on YouTube who speaks very strongly. He was very high ranking with the Islamic Muslims in their ideology and governance over there. And when he became aware of the truth, he left and fled there. He's now hiding in America, but he still does, under alias names, videos and educational videos. And he's still in his studies now of learning the truth of world science and things in this nation now freely, and exposing the lies and the threat of Islam to the American people. Many are trying. Our government clearly does not want to listen to them. And the reason why is because these guys can't pad like the Hillary Clinton Foundation with hundreds of millions of dollars. And that's why we have the Democrats right now opening the doors to this foreign totalitarian ideology as treasonous traitors to the nation of America and the American people, totally with blinders on out of their greed, because the American people in our government, both of Democrats and Republicans, are loving the floodgates that are opening for the money flowing in, and they've been selling our nation out strongly. With Republicans back as far as like the George Bush family. The Bushes have been doing it, which we know today they're rhinos, and they're in bed with the Muslims as well, with the Democrats. And the complicity and the corruption and treason that's been taking place has been at the expense of thousands and thousands of American lives being killed right here in America, and as well thousands more of our soldiers being killed in proxy wars that are literally instigated tactical wars that are pushed by that of our own government, who have been complicit in aiding and assisting these foreign enemies. And this has been going on for 20 years now, strongly. The plan to it has been inactive now for 50 years, since the 1960s. And even beyond that, it's always been a plan. If you watched some of the things, we'll just go on, we'll move forward. The threats to the Homeland terror plot since 2009. This here shows a map of what we know of where Islamic Muslims have infiltrated the United States and are literally setting up active jihad bases for attacks on Americans in our own country. These things have been on the news, but they don't get much attention. And lately, as we know, the media and the outlets in the news have flipped as well with being complicit in aiding and assisting the known and long-established declared enemies of the United States and placing the American people at great threat of harm in our nation through acts of treason in aiding and assisting these enemies. Our own news outlets are ignorant. We have seen, and I've showed in other videos, how the newscasters themselves are nothing but script readers. These are not people of true knowledge and wisdom of anything in world events going on. They're just paid actors who come in and read the script. The script is placed among all the different cities and states the same. They're just actors. It's just disgraceful how we're being played. And as well, when you look at these social media outlets and all, and you realize, again, it's out of greed. These people are being paid huge money by foreign interests, and I believe some of them, when we look at the social media outlets, some of these people may be even being threatened by that of the foreign totalitarian Islamic Muslims, threatening them and their families, because some of it doesn't make sense. They have the money already, so it couldn't be a purchasing, it would have to be a threatening matter. When we look at like the founders of Facebook or Twitter or YouTube or whatever, and we see these people trying to censor the truth of what I'm trying to say right now, which there's a chance this video may get censored. I would hope not, because it's a facts of truth I'm only stating. And if this is, but the threat to these people by the Islamic Muslims is something, like I say, long-established terrorism. And terrorism is what the Democrats and the Islamic Muslims have been around for a very long time. This right now is one of the Muslims who is in our own Congress right now. And she's a Somali immigrant who came here and got citizenship, supposedly escaping the horrors of the Islamic State of Somalia. And now she condemns America constantly, day in and day out, on the floor of our own House of Congress, as a congresswoman in our state. Through what Obama did in her district was he had immigrated in a large Somali population into an area that afforded them to be able to become a district. And of course, with them being the majority in that district, by being transplanted into it through infiltration, they get to elect who they want, and they're going to elect a Muslim. This is how they're slowly infiltrating into our government. Keith Ellison was the first, and since then now we have 4 members who are within our government right now that are Islamic Muslims, and literally hundreds more around the nation in local, county, and town and city districts that are infiltrating through all different levels and forms of our government. These women, here's 2 of the Muslim women in our government right now that are indoctrinated with that of 2. Understand, when you study with Annie Cyrus, or you study things with Brother Raji, or you study things with that of Sandra Solomon, you'll come to understand Sandra Solomon tells about the 2 Qurans. how you have the abrogated Quran and the true Quran, and how the abrogated Quran is used for conversions. It's a soft Sunni kind of version of it, where they mention all and make Islam appear all nice and peaceful and inclusive, when in truth that's an abrogated, meaning it's no longer enforceable. It's not the truth. It's a Tiaka Quran used to fool people. And some of the people here in America, like the totalitarian Islamic Muslims, use that version of the Quran to indoctrinate that of the American Nation of Islam, black Americans, which we're going to take a look real quick. I want to go and just, so I said I wanted to show people, go to my channel here real quick, my videos real quick, and if you go to my YouTube channel, I have a video I made that's, I'm trying to find here real quick. Right here. This is the video I made. You can study this about and get a good understanding of the truth of the nations of Islam, and how government and some majority of those people in there are not very. Let me just change over to it so you can get to see it. This is the video of that I made. It's called "The Lies of the Nation of Islam." And it gives a good understanding of things. You can find out on my YouTube channel, so we're not going into it in this video here. And you can get an understanding of how they lie and how they indoctrinate people with those lies. The other thing now we're going to go back to, because it's important to understand, like I said, so now we're going to go back to take a brief at American history, now that we got a good understanding of, that you understand I'm not lying about the truth of what I'm saying is the truth. These people indoctrinate their own people. They have, you heard from their own people what they're saying. And here you have with the American wars, okay, like we know, the first Barbary War was in 1801, was the Islamic Muslim. I just want to go down to history here real quick and look at these things. Where am I at? Just trying to find a... Okay, now, like I say, when we look in the beginning here, they try to make it all inclusive, that our founders were inclusive. You heard from Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party still to this day, as well Joe Biden today and Harris, they all call the Islamic Muslims our friends. And they try to associate that they have been a part of America and the fiber of America, as they say, since the founding of this nation. But when in truth we look at the facts and the truth of history, we find out that the only relationship between America and the Islamic Muslims is a long trend of abuses and war. And we have to face this reality. We have to face this reality. Because the threat right now to what we're setting ourselves up to, I want to go back real quick over to what I'm looking at right here. I want to just touch on the base of understanding. We had, like I say, we have the wars that took place where we had the Barbary Wars. We had the War of 1801, the War of 1815, World War I itself, as well as the Ottoman Islamic Muslims Empire. This was another attempt of them in World War I in the early 1900s. They were attempting a domination over the world. Russia as well suffered greatly in that war. We were, one thing people don't understand too, in the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, the War of 1801 with the Islamic Muslims, the War of 1815 with the Islamic Muslims, the War of 1812 again with the Second Revolutionary War, as well right up to World War I and World War II, understand Russia was allied with America. Because Russia was a nationalist nation. That's the one thing we have in common with Russia, is that we're a nationalist nation. And Russia does not adhere to that of what we would consider to be this world order. Okay, they're a nationalist nation. They want to have their own sovereignty as their own nation, and they don't want to be obligated or under control of any other world dominant nation. So, and throughout our history, the Democrats don't like Russia. I understand they're communists. We don't agree with their form of government, but we have always had an alliance as a nationalist alliance as allied on the basis of nationalism. And Russia has always been our ally in all the wars that we've ever fought and where our nationalism was being threatened. And this is a fact in history that people just have to learn to accept. It's a reality. You need to learn the truth of history so we know who we are as a people. What I'm looking to right here is understand now, and now, as I said, we go through World War One. We had the Ottoman Muslims in World War One. When we get to World War II, most people aren't aware that the Nazis were all part of all the then 6 provinces of the Nazi regimes that existed during World War II were allied and members of the Nazi Party. In this very day today, the Islamic Muslims are still the only still existing adherent Nazi members. They're still Nazis. And we're letting them into our country, we're letting them into our government, and we don't understand the true danger of it. The Islamic Muslims financed the majority of the war for Adolf Hitler, and one of the primary reasons Adolf Hitler was killing the Jews is because they're the known sworn enemies of the Islamic Muslims. And I got news for you, Christians were next on the block. Had we not stopped World War II, and they were continuing on the pursuit when they would have got to America, Christians would have been being rounded up like the Jews and killed as well. This is a fact. This is a fact we know from the actual plans of what was found after World War II and the documentary of the evidence of what was founded to what the plan was going to be in their world domination pursuit and who their allies were. Many of the excursions into Egypt and what have you by the Nazis were done in agreement with alliances for the financing from the Islamic Muslims for them to collect historical evidence of facts with things off of the Egyptian religions and that of the Israel religions, so that those things could be destroyed, so that Islam could hide the truth of a lot of things I'm telling you. The evidence exists around the world for the totalitarian establishment of Islam. Many of the what they consider their enemies have religious artifacts and information of relics and history that prove exactly that this is a fake totalitarian ideology established for that of a regime seeking world domination and control. The same as what was commonplace that time with many of the world totalitarian regimes and rulers. So this is what I'm trying to say. Now, when we get up and we realize the Nazis courted the Islamic world during World War II, Hitler had full regiments of Nazi Muslim soldiers, people aren't aware of, and many of the Holocaust murdering and taking place of the killing of the Jews was being conducted by that of Muslims within the Nazi party ranks. Because they're the sworn enemies of the Islamic Muslims, and the Muslims believe that all Jews have to be killed as well as Christians, or they have to be forced converted to become Muslims and reject the tenets of their ideology of religion of Judaism or Christianity. As we progress forward in time, we realize that I got things here about this. The Iranian Revolution we know about, but even prior to the Iranian Revolution, I want to go back now and just touch on, I have to keep jumping back and forth, so just be patient with me, people. We're going to go back over here to this here, and we're going to back up a little bit so we can look. We're into the point where we're talking about the Ottoman Empire of World War I. They were our enemies. World War II, the Nazis were our enemies. The Muslims were part of the Nazi party. We get into the Shem Muslims in the Vietnam War. Most people aren't aware, yes, the Muslims were involved in the Vietnam War. It was the Shem Muslims who instigated the communism part of the sector for the division of Vietnam, of which we had to go in because we knew from World War II with the communism, we knew from World War I with the communism, that eventually if we allowed these other nations to be overthrown and dominated by this foreign totalitarian ideology of Islam, that eventually it would come to America. And now it is coming to America. It's here. And we're actually fools for letting it happen. Following the Vietnam War, we would enter into the era of what we would have known as the Iranian Revolution, of which we had conflict with them in the early 70s. These things would lead into Desert Storm. These things would also lead into the Persian Gulf Wars in the early 90s, which would lead into 93, the first attack on the World Trade Center. And then we would have the second attack on the World Trade Center in 2001, and where they would fall. Now, in reference to that, going back to the Democrats and many of the social media outlets wanting to say how America was all-inclusive. We look here at the annual registers. This is going back here. This is something out from our founding fathers in the time of after awakening to the truth of Islam and then being declared now by 4 administrations. Our first 4 administrations of George Washington, John Adams, James Madison, and Thomas Jefferson, all declaring the Islamic Muslims to be the enemies of the United States and the American people. This was something here that was written in the understandings of it. Between these two religions, thus contrast the characters. When they say, what would our founders say? This is what they had to conclude. Between the two religions, thus contrasting their character, a war of 1,200 years has already raged, The war is yet flagrant, nor can it cease but by the extinction of that imposture which has been permitted by Providence to prolong the degeneracy of man, while the merciless and the dissolute dogmas of the false prophet shall furnish motives to human action. There can never be peace upon earth and goodwill toward men. The hand of Ishmael will be against every man, and every man's hand against him. It is indeed amongst the mysteries dealing of God that this delusion should have been suffered for so many ages, and during so many generations of humankind, to prevail over the doctrines of the meek and peaceful and benevolent Jesus right here. And this was in 1830 by our founders. When you want to know the truth of what is being said here, we're going to take a look at something else as well, which I didn't finish up with last time, but this here is a letter, like I said, from George Washington in his time, of which, we've seen in the past where I showed you the thing that says George Washington, a friend of the Muslims. George Washington's comment in relation to the Muslims was this: would to the heavens we had a navy able to reform those enemies to mankind or crush them into non-existence. This was in relation to what the Muslims, after his understanding of who they were and reading and understanding the tenets in the ideology of Islam, this is what George Washington concluded, that they were the enemies of mankind, and that if we had the ability, we should crush them into non-existence. We would find out later, when Thomas Jefferson himself became wise, of the wisdom of the Muslims. And these are some of the writings you can find, and I'll put links to these things so you can see. There's actual many more letters that exist within our federal archives that show and prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the totalitarian Islamic Muslim nations and the Muslims, by their ideology of church and state as one, have been long established and declared the enemies of America. We have to wake up to these truths and face this reality, people, because we are at great threat right now. These Muslims have been doing what they've been doing in the overthrow of many nations in existence of the time that they've been for 1,400 years. We're 244 years new, and we are being right now led into that of what many nations prior to us have led themselves into by the ignorance of not knowing their history or who their enemies are. And right now the Democratic Party, for the majority, is aiding and assisting this known and long well-established enemies to the United States. This is a major threat to our nation right now that we're threatening again right now with the administration of the Democrats and Joe Biden, who's about to again open our borders to the pouring in of these foreign totalitarian regimes. Understand, when you learn about Islam, we have mosques now that have boomed in the United States since the time of Obama. When Obama took office, there was not, I believe, 400 mosques in this nation, which there shouldn't even have been that many. And most of those mosques were established under the ignorance of that of the black Americans with the Nation of Islam. Now, these mosques are actually teaching that of both Sunni and Shia, all traditions of cultural foreign totalitarian ideology to include the Sharia law. And these people who are entering our government are being sworn in on that of their Islamic Quran. This is forbidden in the United States. We have to come to understand the fact of reality, and our military should be coming to understand the fact of reality to this. Anybody, obviously, I don't know. I think our military might be very ignorant to the history as well, because the Quran is the Constitution. As you heard from Sandra Solomon and you heard from Andy Cyrus, the Quran is the Constitution of these foreign totalitarian regimes. This is a foreign government's constitution that we are allowing that of their foreign agents into our nation to swear an allegiance into our government under their constitution of a foreign totalitarian regime. You understand the danger to this. These people are not swearing an allegiance to our constitution. They're swearing an allegiance to their own foreign totalitarian ideology on that of their own constitution. The Quran is the foreign constitution. I'll pull this up and show you real quick. We're going to take a look at this. I'll show you on a I'll pull this up on this website here. The Constitution, so you understand I'm not making this up, of Arabia. Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia. So let's take a look here. The Saudi Arabia Constitution, and we'll go to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is a sovereign Arab Islamic state, religion Islam. You see, right there. This is the Constitution. Is the Islamic Quran. The Quran is that right here. The Constitution. You see it? I don't know if you can see that. Let me make this bigger so you can see it. I don't want anybody to misunderstand what I'm saying, that when we have congressmen in our United States swearing on a Quran, right here, the basic law, this right here in here is the Saudi Arabia's constitution, right? Up to 2005, but it's still the constitution to this day. It's the same one. Okay, Article 1, Basic Law General. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is a sovereign Arab Islamic state. Religion, Islam. Constitution. You see it right there, right? Constitution. The Holy Quran and the Prophet's Sunnah. Now, understand, this is what we are allowing that of Congress people in our government who are elected as Muslims to swear themselves in on. They're swearing themselves in not on our Constitution. When they say they're taking, you see, this is the joke. This is the joke among Muslims right now, and they're laughing about it. They're laughing at Americans to how ignorant and stupid our government is. And the Democrats are so ignorant. I don't believe they're ignorant. They know what they're doing because they've always been the enemies within. But the Republicans are clearly ignorant that no one's raising the question to this. How is it that Keith Ellison and all these other Muslims now, that we got 4 of them in our own Congress, many of them around the states, within state government and local and county districts, are being sworn in on their Quran? And this is happening with nobody realizing that they're allowing these people to swear in on a foreign nation's constitution. Which means that what they're swearing an allegiance to is not the United States Constitution. It is not to that of the tenets of the United States values and principles. They're not swearing to assimilate to that of American culture. When they're swearing into our government, they're swearing into our government under that of their foreign totalitarian ideology of governing law of a foreign nation's government, not the United States. And like fools, idiots, we're allowing this. Do you not see this? Do you not see this? We're allowing this. This can't go on. This can't go on. But this is what we're allowing, and this is the danger we have to face. The Islamic Muslims have been the enemies of America since the founding of America. My point, and I know this is a long video, these are the attacks of the World Trade Center, the things that have taken place. When we look, this is Keith Ellison. These people were sworn in on the Quran. And people are so idiot that they don't realize that these people are the enemies within. Now with the Democrats, who have always been the enemies within. And the goal is clear. These Islamic Muslims do not hide their agenda. They're not hiding their agenda. Their agenda is made very clear. Like if you listen to this guy here.
Muslim. And I eventually came to the conclusion that jihad against America is binding upon myself, just as it is binding on every other able Muslim.
Jihad against America is binding.
Now, understand, we're not listening. They're not hiding their agenda. This is what I'm trying to tell you. This is what gets me. We are being lied to by our own government. We are being literally lied to by our own government. When you hear Hillary Clinton in these videos that I showed you, where she is literally saying about, I'm on the wrong one here. Just give me a minute, people. I'm trying. And I'm trying to get to the point here I'm at where I can see that. That's not what I'm looking for. It's not giving me the ability to get it back, so I lost it. Oh, I've lost the video thing here. So we're going to go to this. But my point is, I'm going to wrap it up. We have to wake up to the truth of the threat of Islam to America. We have to wake up to the truth of the reality of how these people are well-known, long, well-established enemies of the American people. And we have to wake up to the truth of the ignorance of our own government, and that they're setting us up right now to be overthrown by a known, long-established, declared enemy of the United States and the American people. And right now, the American people and our posterity are greatly at threat with the current Democratic administration, because Joe Biden's about to open up the floodgates to allow millions or more of Muslims to enter into our country. These people are ignorant fools who think these people are our friends. And they have no idea that these people have been doing this for 1,400 years, infiltrating and overthrowing nations from within, the same way they're doing it right now in America. And the idiocy, like I say, when we realize the truth of the idiocy that's taking place in this country with these Muslims, and what we see going on with our own government aiding and assisting them in treason it is. These people in our own government right now are so desperate, and why they've got themselves fortified in Washington with fences and the National Guard protecting them, is because they know that as disinformation gets out, and I'm telling you right now, there's over 14 million Americans are aware of this fact. We're just needing to wake up the rest of America, and America had better wake up soon, because we are at great threat right now. Another thing I'm going to say, which we lost the web, so I'm not able to actually bring up what I would like to, because for some reason it's just not, the web is not, my web has gone down. I don't know if it's YouTube knocking my web out, where it won't let me see it, but I'm having a hard time getting this back up. I'm going to try one more time so I can finish this video if possible, because it's knocking me off. I don't want to, okay, we may have it back up. I might have it back up here. So let's see if we can go back. I mentioned, okay, so go here. Right, yep, we have it back up. Okay, so now we'll go back. When we see on Hillary Clinton here, speaking about how the Muslims are our friends and they're not. Obviously, either this woman is complicitly, willingly aiding and assisting known terrorists to our known and declared long-established enemies to our nation and infiltrating our nation out of ignorance, or she's knowingly doing it. And I believe she's knowingly doing it. Because, I mean, how could you not know? Anyone, if she claims she's been among the Muslims, she's read about the Muslims, she's studied the history of the Muslims, she is aware of the truth. And she's doing it because, you know what? They're paying her hundreds of millions of dollars into the Hillary Clinton Foundation. When you realize that she admits herself that when her and Bill left the White House, they were broke. Now all of a sudden they're like they got hundreds of millions of dollars. And, you know, we know from our founders, as it made pretty clear, there's no method of earning that money anywhere in a legitimate business. We've learned this through Donald Trump. And right now, the state of our nation is being a banana republic. And the threat that we're facing right now, because you know what? These people are still, Hillary Clinton is still very involved in what is taking place with our politics right now. And this is scary. When you think of what I just showed you, and you watch this.
Peaceful and tolerant people is done. Let's be clear, though. Islam is not our adversary. Muslims are peaceful and tolerant people and have nothing whatsoever to do with terrorism.
That right there is a right-out lie. And I don't care what anybody says. She knows she's lying. Now, if she's being threatened, I don't know. I doubt it very much. When you look at the history of Hillary and Bill Clinton and you realize who they really are, Klan members out of Arkansas, complicit with that of the Democrats. The Democrats have been allied with the Islamic Muslims since the founding of this nation because the primary slave provider to the Democrats were the Islamic Muslims. The Democrats were the one. The Democratic Party was founded in 1828 as a pro-slavery party, and they had great dealings with the Islamic Muslims. I think I have more. I know it's a long video. I want to touch on things. I just want to keep going and try to get as much information as I can out for people to consider. We're going to go and I want to go through here and see if I can find it. What I'm looking for. Yeah, okay, so we're here. Just give me a minute, folks. Okay, we're looking here. This is the list of wars with the Muslims. Hillary Clinton's trying to say that they have nothing to do with terrorism, right? This is the wars of the Islamic Muslims throughout their 1,400-year history, accountable for an estimated 350 million people being killed in the name of Islam in their pursuit for world domination and control. Now to include as well tens of thousands of Americans throughout the wars that we've had with them, literally up near 1 million Americans. And 350 million Americans prior to America even being on a continent on the earth. So, I mean, it's foolish for her to try and claim she's not aware of this. This here, I'll include links to many of the stuff here so people can understand it. The Barclay Center thinks the debate's not really about religious freedom, but shows the interesting tendencies for the populace to harbor intolerance of certain religious groups who are not like the majority. These are stories as well that go in where we see, like here's about Muhammad, the prophet. This as well, understand that the totalitarian. Now, I debate on these things. This is another thing I want to show you. I debate on many of the issues I'm talking to you about in many forums around the world in Islamic culture and Christian and Muslim grand debates. I'm a person, like you can see here, my comment and my debate here has been posted now up top on this one forum for quite a while. Muslims can't answer to it. And those who do are probably doing the research and due diligence are going to leave Islam or wake up to the truth of Islam, because this points out in this whole thing I post here, the things I'm showing you about how it's a fake religion. Now, in America, the one thing you got to understand, the first mosque in America was put up in America back in 1934 under FDR, the Democrats, allowed for this mosque to be built. This mosque was established with the Nation of Islam under the tenets of that of a man known as Elijah Muhammad here in America, who would bring in the Nation of Islam. And then, like I said, I have that video of my own video, what you can view. I'm not sure if it's here where I have it. It might be. Yeah, it's right here. I'll put a link to that where you can understand the fallacy and the lies of the Nation of Islam and how they got to get into America through the Democrats and FDR. Again, through Democratic Party administrations is who have allowed for Islam to come into America. This leads off to the stem of the story of what's in my video about Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X, and Farrakhan of issues with Islam throughout the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s and its evolution here in America, which lead into right with the Vietnam War, and then stem right back to that of the Muslims attacking us in their grand jihad that they've been having and waging on America ever since this nation was founded. We have to wake up to the truth of these things, people. It's an extreme threat to the reality. And like I say, my point is just to make clear, Islam has always been the enemies of America, always will be the enemies of America. In their tenets of their ideology, we have to be destroyed. This is what people understand. They're not coming into America to assimilate with America. They're not swearing an allegiance, of which I hope you understand what I showed you. They're not swearing an allegiance to America on that of our Constitution. They're swearing allegiance by that of, I thought I had it here on the one we're looking at. I'll pull it back up. We've seen the Arabian one. Let's look at the Constitution of Iran. So I can make my point with that. This is the Islamic Constitution right here. Constitution of the Islamic Republic of Iran. The Islamic Republic tells you right from the door. I'm just trying to look. Right here. The Constitution begins by stating that the anti-democratic movement for the constitutional government, 1906-1911, the anti-colonist movement of the nationalization of the petroleum in the 1950s failed because of the lack of religious coloring thereunder. Moreover, the central axis of the theocracy shall be Quran and Hadith. The preamble further states the Assembly of the Experts for Constitution framed the Constitution after input by the government with the hope that this century will witness the establishment of universal holy government of the downfall of all others. Are you paying attention, right? Article 1 states that the form of government in Iran is that of an Islamic republic. It explains this form is due to the referendum passed by 98% of the eligible voters of Iran and gives credit to Imam, I can't say this guy's last name, for the various revolutions. The tenets of it are Article 2 defines an Islamic republic as a system based on a belief in the one Allah, as stated in phrases, there is no God except Allah. his exclusive sovereignty and right to legislate and necessity to submission to his commands, divine revelation and its fundamental role in setting forth the laws, to return to Allah and thereafter and constructive of the role of beliefs. So understand, pretty much the Quran is the Constitution. The Quran is the Constitution. Islam is the Constitution of Iran. Now we know Iran to be the world's largest terrorist organization. Hillary Clinton should know that this is the world's largest terrorist organization. It's been clear these are known and declared enemies. Now we look at Arabia, we claim Arabia is our ally, but Arabia and Iran share the same constitution. And this is what we have to come to understand, people. In ancient times, it was commonplace for regimes that were establishing world domination progression. They would break up under different kingdoms. When one kingdom was under attack, another who was of an ally to that kingdom, and under the same tenets and principles of that kingdom, under the same constitution and values of that kingdom, would play that of an enemy to that kingdom, so that it could ally with the ones attacking that kingdom, to try and work up a way to that if they destroy that kingdom, they live in this other kingdom. You understand? And this is what we've been being played for fools, and these people throughout history, we see them do this to India, we've seen them do this to Greece, we've seen them do this in the United Kingdom with the Christian kingdoms during the time of the Christian Crusades. We've seen them do this with Greece, Italy, you name it, Russia. I mean, it's been going on for 1,400 years what they do. And any historian should know this. They should know this. So, I mean, we have to wake up to the truth in reality. It's a long babbling video, I understand. But the fear and the reality of the understanding the treason that is taking place right now in our own government is the scary part. We Muslims, another thing, I'm just trying to give people history and understanding. And there's a lot to take in with all this, I understand. But, you have to understand the truth of it. A mosque is not a church like a Christian church or a Baptist church or even a it's not like a synagogue where people go pray. Granted, they go pray there, but they go pray there so that the governing authorities can monitor and make sure that they're adhering to the tenets of what they indoctrinate the people with. But the mosque is also a government sentry. It's a government order. It's where they draft up the laws of their Islamic states. It's where they have their war room to conduct their jihads and plans for war against that of Kafar, which are the non-Muslims of the world. And this is what we don't understand. Now, when you read the tenets of Islam and you understand that they're directed to build a mosque in every land that they conquer, meaning they're directed to establish their governing authority. The imams would be their senate. The imams of Islam would be their Congress, their legislator. You understand? Church and state is one. And the church and the state and the governance of order of law are one. Okay? The head and the leaders who are leading this Islamic totalitarian cult and regime around the world are the rulers. They're the governing authorities. Okay? And though you might have the royal family of Arabia or the royal family of Iran, these people are under the authority of, like, the Queen right now of the United Kingdom. She still exists. They say she has nothing to do with the government. That's a lie. It's the same thing as where they try to say that in Arabia they have a separate constitution of an order of law of what meets the compliance for the United Nations. Yeah, but it's a lie. It's just there for the purpose of compliance for that to make everyone happy on a written statement that's not true. They're lying. They're lying. Arabia is not America's ally. These people are under Islamic rule. They're the Islamic Muslims. There is no such thing as a friendly Islamic Muslims. One thing I would like to just real quick, just to give you, we're going to end this because I know it's getting long, but there's one thing I want to put up. I want to show you what happens in a mosque, what they really teach in the mosque. And you tell me if this is anything like what you think is going on in any church you've been in. I'd have to go here. Just give me 1 minute. I should have this video. Should have been a lot better played out, but like I say, I do these sometimes off the top of my head.
On another occasion, a group of non-Muslims is invited to sit down with the circle.
So we know we The preacher promotes Islam to them, but talks politely about other...
This right here is undercover mosque. This is somebody filming secretly what goes on and what the teachers and tenants are in the mosque that we are not aware of. So, obviously, because they don't tell us they're teachers, but they got caught.
Too.
And the message, the Quran, came to confirm the truth in the previous scriptures.
But as soon as the interfaith group leaves, the same preacher's tone changes completely. She now says Christian teachings are vile.
And we feel nothing sometimes going past the church. We don't look at it and discuss and think, subhanAllah, what are these people doing in there? What they say with their tongues is so vile and disgusting. It's an abomination.
Now, mind you, I'm going to explain to you a real quick history on this. This was an interfaith thing where Christians came into the mosque to see how inclusive Islam was. While they were in there, the Islamic teachers and scholars lied and said they were inclusive, and they acted like they were getting along with them and that everything was okay and fine. Then the Christians leave. They leave the mosque, and then the teacher goes on now to teach the Muslims what they should really know about the Christians.
On another occasion, a group of non-Muslims is invited to sit down with the circle. The preacher promotes Islam to them, but talks politely about other religions too.
And the message, the Quran, came to confirm the truth in the previous scriptures.
But as soon as the interfaith group leaves, the same preacher's tone changes completely. She now says Christian teachings are vile.
And we feel nothing sometimes going past the church. We don't look at it and discuss and think, subhanAllah, what are these people doing in there? What they say with their tongues is so vile and disgusting. It's an abomination.
Like the other preachers in the circle, she says she's teaching from the works of the Saudi scholars. In this case, Sheikh bin Baz, a former Grand Mufti of the kingdom. The teachings include that a Muslim cannot be tolerant of other religions.
He shouldn't just be indifferent and say things like, you go to church, I go to the mosque, let's all stay together like one big happy family and all be united as humanity. This is false, this does not work, this concept is a lie, it's fake, and it's a farce.
The circle preaches for 8 hours a day on Saturdays and Sundays. Any woman who goes there to pray is likely to hear their preaching. Our reporter is told the circle was set up years ago by Mira, but while she's been in Saudi Arabia, it's been run by this woman, Salim. She too preaches Saudi teachings. She says she's met a Muslim woman who is too friendly to non-Muslims.
When she sees a Kafir woman, big smile. When she turns around, she sees me there. Look, it's part of Islam, of the Aqeedah, of the correct belief, that you love those who love Allah, and that you hate those who hate Allah.
You heard what she said, right? You love those who love Allah, you hate those who don't, right? You understand? This is the teachings that go on in the mosque. Now, this woman is teaching in the UK and America and in other, like Canada, okay? And this is what they teach the Muslims in the mosque, okay? And what they say to our face and what they say on the news and what they say out in politics in the public is one thing. What really goes on is this. And this is what we have to be aware of and we have to understand. We are the kafar. That when she speaks to the kafar, that's anyone who's a non-Muslim. These people are making a mockery of the United States of America right now and our government. Being that our own government right now is complicit in aiding and assisting that of known and declared established enemies of the United States of a foreign totalitarian ideology in its infiltration of our country and assisting and aiding them in establishing government buildings right here in the states of our own nation. Right now, up over somewhere in the range of 2,020, I think 2,700 mosques are being built right now in America. This is ridiculous because we, the American people, when the truth comes to light, millions of Americans could wind up being slaughtered right here on our own home ground when the jihad breaks ground here on America if we don't stop it and we keep allowing these people to come in. It's going to happen eventually. There's a history of 1,400 years of it. And it's pretty clear that you can see by the videos right now. This is not of ancient times. The videos I showed you of the school teacher, the videos I showed you of the scholars, the videos I'm showing you right now of undercover, these are videos being made right now in current times. This is what's going on right now in current times. That our own government is staying ignorant to. But they're aware of it. They know. Our military is aware of these things. Our secret intelligence is aware of these things. Our members of Congress are aware of these things. But the Democrats, like I say, they are selling. They don't give a damn how many Americans die. They're self-serving. The money that's flowing in from these oil-rich countries of the Islamic Muslims right now are blinding anyone to the effects of what's going to happen in the future from this. But history paints that, what's going to happen in the future. History paints that. Like I said, history holds a reflection of 350 million innocent people killed in the name of Islam. History shows that of India in times where this has happened before in India and where they slowly infiltrate, or in Greece where they slowly infiltrate, or in the UK where they slowly infiltrate, or in places like Germany, places like Italy where this has happened before, and then they get a certain amount of people and they rise up and try to force that nation like they did in Iran. You see, in Iran, when you look back at the truth of 1978, what was taking place from 1970 forward, in the 1960s up to the 1970s, Ford and Nixon had made alliances with Iran. They were our allies. We were supposed to protect them. But we also see it during the same time of the Republican administration working for these alliances with Iran. We've seen the Democrats pushing Iran to be more inclusive of Islam. We've seen Islam complaining with the Democrats about they were being discriminated. Kind of like what we see happening right now recently in the last 20 years in America was taking place at that time in Iran. And being by this push that was going on, the Shah of Iran, the Kingdom of Iran at the time, before they were the Islamic took over, the king had been working with ignoring history, and clearly people again failed because he allowed like a 20% of Muslims to go into the small military they had. They allowed Muslims to go into the governing authorities as well over there. Though the people were kind of like America, they didn't see it as a big threat. They never believed or seen what was coming. They didn't have a Second Amendment right in Iran. The people had no way to defend themselves should there be an uprising, and they relied on America. And Iran, the Muslims knew under democratic rule with Jimmy Carter that America, they had already pre-made the deal with the Democrats, that they knew under Democratic administration would be when they attacked, because the Democrats would do nothing to aid Iran. They would allow them to be overthrown, and that's what Jimmy Carter did. That's what the Democrats did. So if you want to know what can happen to America, you go back and look at the history of Iran in 1978 and understand they were mini America. They had a constitution near verbatim to ours, except they were lacking the Second Amendment. And all you hear right now from Joe Biden and the Democrats, they want to take away our guns. They haven't been able to infringe the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms, but what they're doing right now is they are impeding upon that of the manufacturer of guns and the manufacturer of ammunition in a way that they're going to be able to prevent the American people from being able to be armed our own guns by taxing the manufacturers to the point they're going to go out of business. So, and then and at the same time they're doing this, they're trying to implement laws to take away the guns from the American people and violate the Second Amendment, and nobody's doing anything about it. I mean, there's going to be something done about it. It's coming soon, but right now, it seems an apparent within that of our entrusted government, nobody's doing anything about it. Democrats, for the majority, are dominating within the government to do whatever they please, and the Republicans within our government are a bunch of goddamn worthless cowards. And this is spread out from that of the federal level down to the state level, down to the county level, down to the city level. The government is failing across the nation, and it's going to be up to us, the American people, to get this under control. But the one thing we need to do as the people is wake up to the truth of the facts I'm trying to tell you right now. Islam is the enemy of America. All Muslims are the enemy of America. Those of like the Black Nation of Islam Muslims, they're ignorant fools that have no idea of the truth. They should go watch my video on the lies of the Nation of Islam and wake the hell up. And it's just a sad thing, like I say, what's going on. The sad thing is, knowing history, I know what's coming if we don't wake up. And it's going to be ugly, and it's going to be at the expense of probably tens of thousands of Americans' lives, more than we ever imagined the horrors that could be afflicted right here in America. And what's going to happen, it should get to the extremity of what it's heading to if we don't stop it now. We have to stop the building of mosque in America. We have to stop the allowing these Muslims, these totalitarian Muslims, into our nation. And Islam has to be removed from America and banned from America, not on the basis of any kind of religious discrimination, but on the basis that this is a foreign government. And it cannot operate on our soil or within our government or among us, the people, especially being that under the tenets of this foreign government, we, by their own decree, are declared its enemies that have to be killed, destroyed, or forced under its submission. This is a fact. And like I'm saying, this is a fact which I'm going to show you was understood by Thomas Jefferson himself, in which he relayed this to James Madison, and our first 4 administrations of the founders knew this. It says here when Jefferson was there, in 1786, Jefferson and Adams met in London with an ambassador from Tripoli asking why the U.S. was being targeted since they had never harmed Muslims. You see, this in itself shows they don't understand the tenets of Islam, but they become to understand the tenets of Islam. The ambassador answered us, Jefferson wrote, that it was written in their Quran that all nations should not have acknowledged their authority were sinners, that it was their right and duty to make war upon them wherever they could be found, and to make slaves of all they could take as prisoners. So understand, our founding fathers knew, and this was from Thomas Jefferson, the so-called friend of Islam. He became aware of these things later in life, and his first speakings they used was out of ignorance, of not understanding the truth. And this is what we have to come to understand. These people, if they were to overthrow this country, all who refuse to convert will become slaves. That's it. And more than likely they won't. They'll do like they did in Iran. They'll kill you. Because in Iran right now, but then the other thing is too, people don't realize slavery still exists. It's still allowed and legal under Sharia law of the Islamic Muslims. And in this very day right now, look it up, you will find that the Islamic Muslim states are still having slave trade markets. They're still selling black African slaves. People may find this very hard to believe, but you know the truth is the truth. I'm going to go back here, and we're going to go and we're going to look at here, so that you know this video covers. And I know it's long and it's random and it's broken up and it's not very organized, but it's to the point of the facts of the truth we have to understand. Slavery and. Let me just give me 1 minute because I know it's there. Here we'll start with this one and we'll go on from there.
In a few years, Amazon may no longer be the biggest e-commerce site because the largest retailer.
This is not where these migrants want to be, heading back to the African continent, thanks to aid from the Italian government to reinforce Libya's coast guard. It's helped cut the number of migrants arriving in Italy to under 22,000 in the last 3 months. It's the lowest total for 4 years. But people trafficking networks in Libya continue to flourish because of government chaos as rival groups battle for power. These Ivorians, repatriated to the Ivory Coast from Libya, say they risk being sold into slavery.
They sell Africans over there, in Libya. They sell men. Even 15-year-old Libyans are there in a car, they're armed. They'll come and kidnap you, and they'll sell you for $70 to $150. And then others will resell you.
As soon as you arrive in Libya, the first thing that happens is that you are taken away and sold. Our black brothers from West Africa, wherever you are from, a Malian, a Senegalese, or any other nationality from the West, even an Ivorian, you are sold. And for what? $700.
But these migrants will tell you that.
So as you can see right here, this is modern recent news, and they're telling you about how the Muslims are selling slaves over there. You can see here.
Now the extent of the Islamic State brutality is well known, but even more ghastly acts by terrorists and the Islamic State are now coming to light. A very well organized sex slave supply chain has been exposed and captured on camera, perhaps for the first time. Captive girls, some as young as 10, as old as 60, directly delivered in the hands of the world's most feared terrorist groups. Now, more than 500 women, they've been abducted and sold in the flesh trade market of the Islamic State.
So, as you can see, what I'm telling you is the truth. The people just don't want to face this reality. Our own government knows of this truth. Hillary Clinton knows of this truth. The Democrats know of this truth. But they're not disclosing this truth to the American people. Why? Like I said, that oil money's keeping their mouths shut. And they're going to tell us what they're told to tell us if they want that money to keep flowing. These people are self-serving, treasonous, no-good scumbag traitors. I think I made my point. I hope I made my point. And we're going to leave off with that. This has been a long, broken up video. And I get it. A lot of people might feel, you know, man, that was all over the place. Well, I'm sorry. This was off the top of my head. I tried to do it organized in a way, but it's an important fact we have to face because sooner or later, the American people are going to have to do something to take control of this situation, and it's best that all Americans be aware of the facts and truth. And these videos, I'm hoping, are enlighten people to these facts and truth. And I hope people take the time to do the due diligence and look into the links that are all going to be listed below in the comments, the description section, and do your own due diligence and understand the truth of the matter. The whole point of this long, dragged-out video was so that you understand our right now current administration of government within both the Republican and Democratic Party are acting complicit in that of treason against the United States and the American people. They're aiding and assisting known and long-established declared enemies of the American people who are right now in this current time accountable within the last 20 years of killing over 5,000 Americans right here on our own home ground by the aiding and assisting of that of the majority of the Democratic Party and the ignorance of turning a blind eye of the Republican Party. And it's going to get a lot worse soon if we don't wake up and do something about it and stop it now. Our posterity, that of our children and our grandchildren, are at great, great threat in the future if we don't stop this now. We should not be allowing the building of mosques in this country. We should not be allowing Islam in this country. We should not be allowing Muslims in our government in this country because they are known, long-established, declared enemies of the United States and the American people. They have a sworn allegiance that they have to destroy this country. They have declared this now for the last 244 years of our history. They have been our enemies since the founding. They were our enemies in the Revolutionary War. They were allied with Great Britain and that of the slaveholding states and the Tories of the slaveholders because they were selling them the slaves and profiting from the slavery. They were allied with that of the Democrats during the Civil War because, again, over slavery. The Democrats then were the pro-slavery Democrats of the Confederacy who were slave states, and they were dealing with that of the purchasing of slaves, had plans of slavery with that of the Islamic Muslims. The Muslims were allied with the enemies of America after the Civil War and World War I in the early 1900s. They were part of the Nazi Party in World War II. They were part of the communist division that took place in Vietnam with the Vietnam War, and they've been attacking us and trying to destroy America ever since. And since 9/11, 2001, these Muslims have pretty much, there was the first attack ever on American soil where you realize near 3,000 Americans killed in that attack. And since that attack, now we're up over 5,000 Americans killed in America by the Islamic Muslims that by being able to come in, and they're killing us right here on our own home ground because they're being aided and assisted by the Democratic Party with complicity of the Republican Party and aiding and assisting them coming into our country and taking up in our country the positions of our own government and having power and ability to go ahead and harm and kill Americans on our own home ground. And this we have to wake up to the reality and the truth of this, because right now this Democratic administration is about to make things a lot worse, and things are about to start going back to as they were before Donald Trump, with the terrorist attacks right here taking place in America, because they're already picking up around the world right now. So with that said, I'm going to leave off. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'm sorry it was long and broken up. It was done kind of spontaneously and really unorganized outside of bringing up a bunch of videos that I would hopefully be able to include for information to prove my points of what I was saying. And with that, I'll just leave off. It's been a real long video. Thanks to all who watched it this far. Good luck with your due diligence on it. Do your research, people. Wake up to the truth and face that truth. Thank you all for the time watching my video. Have a great day.